Perfect.
Right?
Wow.
Okay. Oh, and
Oh,
I need
look
to
at how
clear this.
perfect.
Yes.
Yeah.
Surprise, surprise. Welcome to Phoenix Talks. And we have a last minute.
That's
Hey,
right.
we're here together in the same room. We don't
I
have to
know.
talk across the state today.
That's
It's
right.
amazing.
The best things happen spontaneously.
Yes. And as you all know, I'm Micah, and this is
I'm
Diane.
Diane.
And we are bringing you Phoenix Talks today. We're going to be talking about boundaries because it seems to be a very large problem that a lot of people suffer from.
Right.
And it's not even just setting boundaries between other people, it's also setting healthy boundaries for ourselves.
Right.
And what we will give ourselves permission to do and what we
Right.
won't give ourselves permission to do.
And to accept and
Absolutely.
to receive. Absolutely.
In just a moment while I bring up my YouTube so that I can make sure that we are being seen and heard.
All right.
And so just in case we have anybody in the chat.
And I'm so grateful that Micah is tech support because this is beyond my scope. I understand a lot of things. Technology is too limited.
Oh, and it's not okay. We got to go to my channel.
Oh, look at that. It's perfect.
Oh, look, there we are. Okay, I'm turning it down. Ah, you hear us. Okay, all right, there we go. All right, so what's our lead in question today?
The lead in question I would ask is, what are boundaries and why are they important? So it's kind of like a twofold question because they're going to both answer each other.
They really will.
So boundaries are not for the other person; they're for you, and they're to protect you. That's what they're there for, to make sure that you are in alignment with who you say you are as a person, and you are allowing what you believe you deserve into your space only. So,
God, the branches of that could go off.
Yes, we'll get into them.
Yes, we will get to them. Oh my gosh. So what are boundaries? It's that one sentence word that a lot of people don't know.
Yeah.
No.
It's a full sentence.
It's a full sentence. If you follow either of us on Facebook, you know that one of our friends just posted that no is a full sentence in itself.
Yeah.
And the capability of being able to say no, knowing when to, that in itself is the easiest part of boundary setting.
Right. Yes. Yes.
But still hard.
Because you do have to get to know yourself and do the work in order to know where your boundaries are. It's up to you to discern where those boundaries are for you, because we're all very unique individuals. It's not going to be the same for either of us either.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly. Like I keep saying, I don't know if I say it every week, but I know I say it often. There are 8 billion different realities growing.
Yeah.
And that number is growing every day on this planet. So there are 8 billion different boundaries that have to be set. And you can't have a textbook definition of what that entails. You can only have a foundational idea.
Right. Right. Now.
So it's trial and error.
Why do we need boundaries? We need boundaries so that we can allow ourselves permission to grow. Without boundaries, there's no growth because you're not allowing for changed behavior. So especially externally and internally simultaneously. Well, let's talk about what that means when you say, okay, let's make up a scenario. Let's talk a scenario, a real world scenario.
I actually have one that I was just talking about last night.
All right.
A general manager at a fast food. I won't brand bash or anything because I don't want this to be misconstrued. But I was having a conversation with somebody just last night about their general manager, and I've been there too, that they weren't setting healthy boundaries. They were always in their phone, even when they were off work.
Okay.
So why does that person need healthier boundaries? So that they can turn their mind off, so that they can say no, so that they can say, this is not what I'm supposed to be. This is not where I'm supposed to be. This is not who I'm supposed to talk to. This is my time. And this is why we need these boundaries.
Right.
Because while our spiritual side has infinite energy, the body needs to sleep.
It does.
Right?
It does.
The body needs to rest. The mind needs to rest.
Yeah.
You need to be able to step back. And this is why boundaries are so important.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. You help yourself relax your nervous system. In many, many ways.
Exactly.
Let's do another scenario. Like, let's say there's a lot of breakups happening right now because people are starting to be like, I don't like this anymore. So let's throw that relationshipy stuff out there. And it doesn't matter if it's a romantic or a friendship or a family member, especially during holiday season and eclipse season where everybody's a little irritable.
Yeah. We don't, neither one of us and most people right now are just completely baffled by the energetics that are going on that are bringing stuff up. We don't know where it's coming from, but the more that, and this goes for anybody, the more that you are trying to rise right now into authenticity, into being genuine, into the real you, the real phoenix that lies inside. But the more that you're trying to rise up into that, there's something at play going, nope, stop it. So, and we'll get right back to this, but since we had the extra time and we don't have Marie needing to go out.
I left her somewhere else. She's quite content.
But there have been migraines. Yeah. Extra sensitive to foods. Gastrointestinal problems. There have been so many different variations that have escalated in people that I know personally that have been trying to rise up into their authenticity, that they're being pushed back down. We don't know where it's come. It doesn't matter.
So are they being pushed back down, or are they being redirected into in a direction that's more in alignment with them? Or are they being tested? Everyone's got a different experience. Are they being tested to learn how to integrate with that experience and acknowledge what the body's doing so that they can grow in a different way that way? Like there's a million things happening with that process of ascension. So don't forget that you need to just observe what your body's doing, observe what you're feeling, observe, and this is part of doing the work anyway. So it kind of, you're helping yourself on all levels. So this is how it all spreads out. And the same thing.
And this is why you need to know boundaries.
Because without boundaries, you're not going to be able to regulate your own nervous system, because all that is part of you needing to regulate your own nervous system and integrating your different level of understanding into whatever your experiences that you've now surpassed. So boundaries come in handy. All right, so let's go back to that like relationshipy part. Like what happens when you're not resonating with someone, not aligning with someone, and now you know it's time. You've decided it's time, but you don't know how to make that happen, because that's the piece that people get stuck on.
Oh yeah, and one of the things that leads into this feeling is I have to constantly do. I have to constantly take care of. I have to constantly watch out for. I have to constantly.
Right.
And typically, it feels one-sided. It could be both sides, but a lot of times it feels like one person is carrying the relationship because that one person isn't setting healthier boundaries for themselves and for their partner.
Right. So there's an imbalance in the relationship.
Yes.
Yeah. When there's
there's an imbalance within.
That's it.
If you're afraid to say no because you're afraid to hurt somebody, check yourself, because this is where the boundary that you're not setting for yourself.
Right.
Is ruling your life.
So we could dive really, really deep into this one, or we could just wade in the water a little bit. We'll start with wading in the water on this one. Because ultimately there's a reason why you lack boundaries. You're a people pleaser, you're this, you're that, you're ultimately stemming from, if you want to dive deeper into your own childhood and recognizing what led to your behaviors of seeking that being loved, whatever, filling the voids and the lacks within. So your focus is more on pleasing others to be loved, to be liked. So that's for you all to deep dive. But for now, let's talk about wading in the water a little bit.
And the when you're kind of treading water, I'm gonna just gonna bounce like I'm in the sea right here. So when you're treading that water, what's swimming in it? All right, let's attack a few of those fish that are getting you from underneath. We don't have to dive deep. But if you have thoughts of, I have to take care of this, I should be doing something else, I should always be this way. People who've known me and followed me for a while know that I'm big on shoulds. And if you're shoulding on yourself, I can't wait to see the captions on this, but if you are shoulding on yourself, these are the boundaries that are biting you underneath, that you're not allowing yourself to say, I can't, not right now. I don't have the energy.
And that's because you're taking personal responsibility and you feel this false sense of obligation towards whomever or whatever, because that's what you were programmed to believe. So throw that stuff out in the garbage and set it on fire and put yourself back on the priority list, and don't worry about somebody else's feelings. That's their problem, not yours.
Right. I mean, it's our responsibility, if we are feeling a certain way, to tell somebody else how we are feeling.
Right.
It's our accountability how we tell them. Here's what's not your accountability, and here's where your boundary needs to be very firm. It's not your accountability. On how they receive it, how they act, what their response is, how it affects their emotions. And this is the fear that so many people have because of how it's going to come back at them if they express how they feel.
So this is why you need to do the work on yourself in order to empower yourself to recognize that you are worth having boundaries and putting yourself on the priority list first. You have to take care of your own needs first and prioritize yourself. Boundaries teach people how to treat you. If you don't have boundaries, then you're basically going to allow yourself to continue to be walked all over. And boundaries come in for many different reasons in many different forms, but specifically to that relationship part, you can't take responsibility for someone else's reactions towards you.
No.
Not your job.
No. Now, if you come from a place of anger and reaction and you wind up with a black eye, perhaps you deserved it because you crossed a line. But at the same time, you aren't responsible for the reaction that you received.
Right.
That's a whole nother Phoenix talk.
They could have handled it differently as well. They could have
handled it differently. We could spend another hour on that alone. But for now, we want to try and, how do you get beyond this so that you can set healthier boundaries for yourself? What needs to be looked at within?
And how do you need to love yourself differently? And how are you self-sabotaging? A lot of times we're programmed to be in that state of in service of for self-preservation to a certain degree, but just as a general, you don't matter.
Right.
Programming. Okay. I'm not sure what to call it. Programming. We'll call it programming. But ultimately, you have to decide what you deserve and what you're worthy of, and you have to recognize that within, which is why doing that self-love work is important. Dropping the judgment is important. Not seeking external validation is important.
Exactly.
And what was the other topic we just said? Forgiveness is important.
Yes. Which we only kind of finished, because that could have gone on for a while. But
there will be more of that.
There was so much to unpack in that 1.5 hour that we had. Thank goodness for the interruption. Apologies for what
no
it
worries.
was,
no worries. There was someone passed away and crossed over, so I had to attend to that because it had been somebody I was ministering. So it was that time.
Fortunate that they had somebody as compassionate.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
But back to boundaries. The way you get yourself to understand what the boundaries that you need are to pay attention to how you feel. And you can't discern how you feel if you keep allowing other people's opinions to dictate what you feel.
Right.
So you have to self-examine and just allow yourself permission to give yourself that love and attention, that care, dropping all the judgments, throwing out the programming, and trying out, like, you're just giving yourself a clean slate.
Yeah.
Let me just learn about me and what feels right to me.
Yes.
What intellectually makes sense. There's math that adds perfectly, not the kind that you're just gaslit and you think, what?
Yes. Yes, gaslighting yourself is, no, stop it.
Don't do that.
No.
That's self-sabotaging.
Gaslighting yourself. Even though that, that phrase alone still is an enigma to me, because it's so misused and overused that it's like, okay, I can just probably describe what it actually is, but don't ask me for the definition because I don't have a clue.
I actually do. I can go into that in a minute, but I don't want to lose this thought right here. You know what? Let me just go into it. ADHD. Now we're on there. The gaslighting term is coined from the old movies where they had the gas lights. Those old movies, the husband would want to get rid of the wife, so he would start messing with the gas flow and the lights would flicker, and then the wife would say something and he would say, no, what are you talking about? They're not doing that. I don't know what you're talking about. So he would lie to her to where she would feel like there's something wrong with her and she would go to bed.
Right.
So that's gaslighting, where it comes from.
The more you know.
The more you know.
Okay.
On that note, that's part of self-love. Expand your knowledge so that you can understand yourself better. Seek as many different healers and methods of understanding yourself. Go towards what resonates with you.
Exactly.
Like you were saying before, there's a million different things going on at the same time. So you have to give yourself permission to do that in order to understand where your boundaries are.
Right.
So,
and just yesterday also, a lot apparently happened yesterday. I was looking through Facebook and a large group, I'm not going to mention any names again, because I think,
right.
But in somebody pretty famous, he has his own group, and somebody made a post talking about people putting so much emphasis in astronomical, astrological, meteorological, everything outside of themselves to account for not taking their accountability. Now, the bandwagon that happened after that, almost 100 comments I'm going through and reading. You have no idea the different levels of feeling attacked, attacking back, going, oh my God, I can't believe he just said that. You just don't know. Okay. The reason that I brought that up is because when Diane said that there are so many different ways that you can look up to expand your knowledge about yourself, but make sure that it resonates with you, because here's the thing, everybody's right and everybody's wrong. Because everybody is right in what works for them. And everybody is wrong in thinking that what works for them is going to 100% work for someone else. Which
brings me right back to the relationships, because that's exactly why things go south. Because you're not aligning. You have different perspectives, different experiences, different belief systems, different values.
Exactly.
Do not force any kind of relationship. You can love them from a distance. Doesn't mean you don't have love. Doesn't mean there's not beauty and joy and things to remember and experiences had. It has nothing to do with any of that stuff. It has everything to do with where you're at in your own personal journey. Journey.
Journey, Joni. Okay.
Yeah. In your own personal journey, so that you can discern, is this individual gonna continue to grow with me, or have I reached a space where I feel like maybe their energy for me is not healthy for me?
Yes.
And it's time to move on.
Right.
So how does a boundary sound? That depends on the circumstance and situation. Every circumstance and situation is going to require a different boundary, and boundaries are going to look different for you, because you have to decide what you're okay with. I'm going to use myself as an example. Okay. With my children. Okay. When they were teenagers, there was a very unhealthy situation that came from, and I'm going to leave it at that. Y'all can do your own math. Regardless, with that in mind, and where I was at in my own journey at that point, still in survival mode, I made sure that I made peace with this idea before I even presented it to my children, who were both teenagers, that if ever I was the toxic one in their life, that they were allowed to not talk to me and distance themselves from me for their own health and well-being. I made peace with that before I brought that up, but I basically gave them permission to set that level of boundary with me, so that they understood that they can make their own decision and not feel obligated or responsible to answer to somebody that is unhealthy for them, because we all have to acknowledge our own toxic traits and how we affect our families, ourselves.
Yep.
And thankfully I was able to do that. But that's a boundary. I literally sat down and had a conversation with them individually and had that conversation. And I had a lot of conversations like that with a lot of people with different ways, you know, in different spaces and places and reasons. In relationships, like say it's a romantic relationship and someone's disrespecting you. Disrespect is on all-time high right now. So if you're feeling angry and triggered, analyze your anger and trigger, and analyze, are you angry because you're not in control of your own emotions, or is your body telling you that you're being disrespected? And that's not okay.
Yeah. Another way that I look at that with people is I will ask them, because they'll come to me and talk about problems that they're having in their relationships. And I will say, okay, well, I want you to think about this when your partner gets upset with you. And this can go for friends too. Are you angry at them, or are you angry towards them?
That's it.
Because when you're angry at somebody, it's because they specifically did something new that upset you. And I emphasize new, because when you're angry towards somebody, they just triggered something that was inside you that you've experienced before that you didn't like, and you reacted to that idea, energetic thought, however you want to look at it, and had an angered response. That's when giving yourself permission and setting your own boundaries is all about giving yourself permission. First and foremost. First and foremost. Give yourself permission to set healthy boundaries. So when you give yourself permission to pause, take a moment. Am I angry at or towards? It's a quick question. You're going to get a quick answer.
Right.
If you're listening. And all you have to do is pause for a moment. Okay, am I angry at or towards this person? Towards. Okay. It happens that fast.
And then ask why. That's the follow-up question.
Then ask why. Now, here's where holding yourself accountable and setting that boundary is important. If it's towards them, let them know as soon as you can, so that they begin to recognize, okay, this isn't about me. This is about them.
Right.
So that they don't react. And then you're going back and forth. Because if you're not having the communication, you're not setting healthy boundaries.
Right. The communication might look like, so if there's that back and if you're acknowledging that you're mad towards them and you need to express to them why, you have to pause yourself to remind yourself to speak respectfully, regardless of what their actions are. And this is, of course, if it's severe abuse, it's a whole different ballgame. We're not talking about that. No. That's a whole different conversation.
Completely.
But when you are communicating with them, you are going to speak to them truthfully and respectfully, and it must pass through at least these 3 gates, and whatever are the gates you want to pass it through. But is it true? Is it relevant? Is it kind? That's it. Because remember, the energy that you put out is the energy that you're telling the universe to give you. So be mindful of how you communicate to someone, even in their angered state.
Oh, yeah.
Not because you're trying to tiptoe around them. Those days are over. but because you're trying to remain in the state of observation so that you could learn what your body's telling you and how to put yourself on the priority list and fulfill your own needs. And you're observing them so that you can respond with clear thinking and without the old emotions from old triggers taking over and your ego wanting to be right. There's no right. It's just, what's the situation? Do I want this situation? Why is this here? And what do I do to stop it? So you can speak respectfully when you set your boundary, but you can tell them directly, I am being disrespected because this is what you're doing, very specifically, and I'm not accepting being disrespected. It's that simple. And whatever words in your language that comes out in, that's your personal, however that comes out, but that's the whole raw message.
Yeah. And it's ironic that we chose this topic because I just finished a section in a book that I'm writing called, and not the book isn't called, but the section is called Ending the Broadcast. And what that is all about is, and here's another scenario, okay, for setting boundaries. Now, and this goes back in relationships. So follow me on this. All right. So I can vouch for this personally because I used to do it and still at times do. I've been hurt by somebody and I go and I tell my mother, my sister, my friends, post it on Facebook, talk to every single person on the planet that I can possibly, that will sit and listen long enough. Now, meanwhile, I think that I'm venting it out and I'm getting it out and I'm working it out. Nope. I'm just broadcasting to every single person except who it needs to go to. That's not setting healthy boundaries.
And it's also not setting a boundary for yourself.
Exactly. It's not giving it. Well, I wasn't giving myself the permission to process these feelings and bring it up to the person. It takes a huge amount of vulnerability and courage to get to this place of healthy boundary setting where you are expressing the emotions that you're feeling caused by another person. And actually, that can be another conversation because the emotions that you're feeling that you think are caused by another person are actually a response to the thoughts that you're having and the feelings that are being produced inside based on other triggers and programming that you've had as you were growing up.
And someone's just reflecting that trauma right back in your face. And
I guess it was my turn to have a rewind because you need to rewind that and listen to that a time or two because that was a lot to unpack.
It was, and it's all good.
We both have our moments, and they're great.
That was beautiful.
So when you're broadcasting, we're going to call it gossip because that's what it turns into being. It doesn't turn into a form of healthy venting and going to someone that you trust, that you can express what you need to, just to bounce it off them, hear it. That's what counselors, therapists, coaches, psychologists, best friends are for.
Right.
Now, if you have a best friend that decides that they want to break that boundary and they want to go and broadcast, well, then you might want to consider your relationship with them. But that's another topic. So,
or not. I mean, you could set that boundary with them.
No, and that's another good point is that you can actually set that boundary where, okay, I know now I love them with all my heart, and I know that they're good people, and I know that they're not actually trying to hurt me, so I can't tell them this.
Yes, and there are gonna be some folks out there who will be like, yeah, but I want to, at least tell them not to do that and then see what happens. Those people out there too, that's fine. Whatever your process and your journey is going to be what it is.
Yes.
The whole point is setting the boundary and then maintaining it, because sometimes that happens too in relationships where you need to set a boundary and then watch, just observe and see if they maintain that boundary and respect that boundary. If they don't, then you gotta make a different decision.
Exactly.
They're not capable, not because they're whatever, just they're on their own journey. They're in their own little space. Think of it like, we had this analogy before where we're driving in a car. We're all in our own little bubble world in our own car. Nobody's bothering us. It's just us. That's how they operate. That's how every individual on the planet operates. Those of us more empathic and on the path of understanding and learning and growing are taking into consideration the journey of others. So if you're in that space with a relationship where they're not in the same space as you, it's time to set those boundaries, observe.
And remember that you can't change someone's behavior. You as a person cannot change how another person thinks, how another person acts. That is completely 100% up to them. Now, unless it is a puppet, you can't control.
Right.
But we find ways to. Another conversation.
That's a whole other topic.
We will never run out of topics because there's always another branch that we can go and hang out on.
But the communication piece on how to establish those boundaries is going to look different in different circumstances. So ultimately, you have to make sure that your communication is first true for you, your truth, and truth externally. But you do need to analyze, like that internet thing, was that a white dress with gold stripes or a black dress with blue stripes? There's perspectives. As long as you understand that there's perspectives so that you can make a decision on what your specific perspective is and then stand firm on that, it's your truth. Okay? Because you're still finding out what your truth is. You're not 100% sure yet if you were told how to feel by everybody else. That's part of the self-discovery part. So you got to drop that judgment, because you're still even learning how to set boundaries and where it's appropriate, because you still have to learn what is disrespect. Not always easy to recognize, because sometimes it's covered in kindness. I put that in quotes. Sometimes it's covered in compliment. Sometimes it's covered in false friendship. So observe, love yourself enough to remain an observer in your experience so that you can discern what feels right and what doesn't feel right, and where you place those boundaries and how hard those boundaries are, and etc.
And to tag on last week's forgiveness with that saying, when there is this type of manipulation going on in a relationship, this is setting the stage for abusive manipulation. Because there'll be good times, then there's something dramatic will happen, physically, emotionally, verbally. Oh, I'm so sorry. Please forgive me. I love you. How many have heard that? I'm not going to trip that trigger for very long for the viewers, because that was enough. But if you start experiencing this time and time again, they are inundating into your boundaries and you're letting them. You don't mean to. You have love. And this is when you're starting to recognize, what am I allowing in?
Right.
We do this with what we watch, what we listen to, who we talk to, who we hang out with,
right,
the news we read, the people we put in office. What am I allowing in my space? Answer that question.
Right.
On any level. I even offer to, as an exercise, get a piece of paper. What am I allowing in?
I don't speak politics at all.
No.
So there are plenty of people in my world that are all about it, as many, many people are. And my way of respectfully expressing healthy boundaries around that topic is, I'm going to excuse myself from this conversation. I don't talk politics because I feel like it invokes a lot of negative emotions that I don't participate in, and that's not where I'm at vibrationally, and I walk away. It's that simple for me. I just don't participate. And now those folks have been trained not to talk politics around me because they value my presence more than they value that conversation.
And I'm actually having trouble ignoring my guides are showing me this wavelength in front of me that politics and abusive relationships are on similar wavelengths, and how they get in and how we allow them in.
It's manipulation on a grand scale.
On a grander scale.
Yes.
Because people are trying to control.
Right. So you have to figure out where your boundaries are. And ultimately, I'm going to say something that might be a little ouch, but it is a truth, is that people pleasing, which I feel like are the group of individuals, as a recovering people pleaser, I have learned many, many years ago that people pleasing is not only enabling, but another form of lying.
Oh, yeah.
And inauthenticity, because you are basically neglecting yourself, rejecting your own spirit, and lying to make someone else's needs fulfilled, which is self-betrayal.
Oh, yeah.
So setting boundaries for yourself and stopping yourself when you recognize your people pleaser behavior happening, it's important to maintain. And you can't keep doing that to yourself, because you're going to keep creating the same type of relationships going forward. So boundaries are really important in teaching people how to treat you, but it's also, you have to teach people how to treat you by treating yourself that way. So stop betraying yourself.
Exactly. I actually had a client tell me this week that once the realization was there of people pleasing, which is killing your boundaries, by the way, not the client, but the viewers. If you are people pleasing, it's killing your boundaries. But once the realization was made that that's how she was operating, and she stopped. Whether this is on a thought level, physical level, action level, stop people pleasing, and then started to turn inwards and recognized, oh my God, I can breathe. My health is better. My mental health is better. My physical health is better than it was, because I don't have all this tension of trying to make somebody else happy.
Yes. Now I'm going to say that the first time you practice speaking up for yourself, it's going to be very uncomfortable, because what you're doing is hanging on to the fear of the ramifications. So you're still, just remind yourself, you're not responsible for their reaction.
Right. You're going to be like Rod Stewart at most of his earlier concerts, where he would do the entire concert hiding behind the stack of speakers, because he had such a fear of speaking out. And it can actually be at that level the first time. But once you recognize that you can, and that it matters.
It matters. And it helps you discern who deserves your love and attention and who doesn't, because ultimately, if your boundaries are rejected and disrespected, do you really want those people in your life? They're not really in alignment with you, and they don't you're going to continuously and perpetually be misunderstood and unheard and invalidated and dismissed. Why would you want to keep experiencing that? So you kind of have to give yourself a little pep talk of like, I've got to practice speaking up for myself. It's going to be uncomfortable, but I got this. Let me just rip the Band-Aid off. And is it true? Is it relevant? Is it kind? Okay, go.
And this is experience talking. Because for years I would tell, like I was talking about earlier, I would tell every person that I knew what I was feeling about this person standing out here by themselves that I wasn't talking to, because I was terrified of what the response would be, even though I knew what the response would be because of how I had been treated.
Right.
So if you're actually afraid that you're going to hurt somebody's feelings, you already have an idea of what the response is going to be on an energetic level, but you're having a conversation in your head about something else and how it's actually going to go.
Yeah. Now, when when you do speak up for yourself, understand that that is a practice in self-love.
It is.
You're giving yourself permission to put yourself and your own needs first, and not. And on that topic of sharing information to individuals around you, part of that is because when you're mistreated and when you're a people pleaser, you end up feeling like your thoughts don't matter and you're stupid and you're being gaslit and mistreated and disrespected. You're questioning yourself. So in that method of venting and releasing, you're actually trying to help regulate your nervous system because you need that external validation still. So, but in the meantime, what you don't realize is that what that's doing is filling your head with everyone else's perspective but your own. So that's why it's important to set boundaries for yourself and understand that, nope, okay, I know this is uncomfortable, but I got to process this first, me. Let me first get a handle on it. And then if I get stuck somewhere, let me very strategically select the right person for this particular scenario that I could use as a bouncing board. And
or just take a deep breath, a big gulp, and go and talk to the person.
There you go.
There's that too.
Yes.
But that takes a lot of courage and being pushed into a corner, which a lot of people wind up doing, which is why the response turns into reaction first and not vice versa. Right. If you want to respond to something that's happening to you, then give yourself the permission to take a look at it. How do you feel? What is it doing to you?
Right.
Is that where you want to be? Is this how you want to be? Give yourself the permission to regulate your nervous system. Let it calm down. Because in the moment that something happens, it's not calm. The adrenals, they're going. You are in that fight or flight mode, and you're ready to lash out. Sometimes it's necessary, most of the time not.
Right.
And
now
can be avoided.
You have to decide for yourself what energy you want to put out for yourself. So that's setting boundaries will help you align more with that compassionate self and not give into the lashing out part of the ego that is trying to hold you to seeking validation and needing that affirmation from external sources, etc. So the boundaries really do start with yourself and what you're going to accept and not accept and how you're going to allow yourself to express it. And it takes practice and time. I guess we both have lots of experience at this point.
Yes. Oh, yes.
So I'm happy we get to share our knowledge with you.
I grew up a people pleaser.
Yeah.
Gotta do. Now, let's flip a coin real quick. When you are people pleasing and you are not having strong boundaries, I experience this too. Because I will do things for other people. And because my boundaries aren't healthy, there will be a level of reciprocity that I expect that doesn't get fulfilled. Because it's still a growing journey inside where it's trying to escape me right now. Come on, thought. Come back here.
It'll come.
Why don't these people that I've helped, why aren't they there when I need them? When I don't set healthy boundaries, I'm keeping them at arm's length because this is where they feel comfortable. This is where they feel they can be. And they don't need to be closer because I've done 4, with or without permission, And then, oh gosh, I'm going through this. Where are they?
Mm-hmm.
This is where accountability in boundaries is so important.
Yeah.
Have I tried too hard to please everybody that I've become a nuisance to them? And this is a general I. These are questions you can ask yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But have I become such a nuisance of being that person that had to please everyone all the time,
Mm-hmm.
that they were like, oh God, it's you again.
Right. Right. Whereas now you're the pusher. And they may not want it.
No. And then on another level of that, once you stop people pleasing, once you set those boundaries, you're going to notice soon. I'm not going to put a date on it, but you're going to notice soon, once you stop being a people pleaser, setting your boundaries, that the crowd around you is going to thin.
Mm-hmm.
Expect it, bless it. Because it's going to happen, and it's okay, because we surround ourselves with good people, bad people, in between all the time. But we want to hold on to as many as we can because that makes us feel better about ourselves, filling that void and that emptiness that
right.
we can't fill ourselves.
But is that healthy for you?
Not
That's
really.
the question.
Not really.
Right. Right. And the boundaries are going to protect you from things that just aren't resonating with you anymore. And the boundaries that you set for yourself are going to teach people how to treat themselves. And the boundaries that you set in relationships are going to teach you who belongs in your life and who doesn't. Because ultimately, if you're still seeking external validation and then like betraying yourself and sacrificing yourself for someone else who really isn't fulfilling your needs, you're not fulfilling your needs. You are responsible for maintaining balance within yourself. So if you feel yourself being overextended and overdrained by a specific individual or circumstance, or even a TV show that might be like a little too dark and violent-y and it's starting to make it weird, like just those boundaries in every aspect of life.
Yeah.
I know there's going to be some people on here that want to learn work boundaries, because it's a whole different ball game.
It really is.
No matter what area of expertise, there's a hierarchy, unless you work for yourself and you're the boss. But then you have employees, so that's a different dynamic.
And if you don't, then you have all of it to worry about. So then you're definitely going to should on yourself. It's just the name of the game, right?
I feel like getting you a shoulda bird.
Here comes a should.
I think we're going to make one.
Oh, God is going to should on me.
Oh, gosh. Anyway, where were we? I totally distracted myself.
Work relationships.
Thank you.
And setting the boundaries there. Now, there's a difference between setting your boundaries and agreements you've made. Now, if you have agreed to be that person that you will be on call 24/7, 365, if you've agreed to this, first of all, shame on you, because you have more of a life than that.
Don't shame me.
I'm teasing. Not the time for personal. Anyway. But seriously, if you've agreed to this, then it's time to understand that and figure out how you can balance your life with what you've agreed to. If you haven't agreed to this 24/7, 365, then a conversation needs to be had with the person who is calling you at 3 a.m. and saying, you got to go in and work tomorrow. No, I don't. It's my off day. But you're general manager. I don't care. I just work 50 hours in a week. I'm not going to do it.
Right.
I just realized we don't hold phones like this anymore.
We're just dating ourselves. That's all.
I'm just grabbing that rotary phone.
Yes.
But seriously.
Yes.
when it comes to work relationships, setting healthy boundaries. Okay, you agreed to X number of hours a week to do X job with X employees for X customers. This is what you've agreed to. Now, are there going to be weeks that that agreement is less? Yes. Are there weeks that that agreement is going to be more? Yes. This is natural. This is healthy.
Right.
But if you are just allowing it, and if you're a boss, listen close. If you're a boss and you have employees stepping all over you, from experience, let them go. Have a conversation with them, give an opportunity. But if they are not respecting the boundaries that you, as their manager, as their operations manager, and they continue to step over them, and you let them, time to let them go. I found this out the hard way. And it's not fun.
Not everybody's aligned.
Because you surround yourself with this toxin. Your job is already stressful.
Right.
So why add to that stress? Now, the fear that I and most people in this position experience, the fear is that, well, I'm just going to have to work harder. You're already having to work harder. If you're in this position where you have an employee who is not doing what they're supposed to be doing, you're having to clean up after them. So you're already working harder. You might as well relieve the stress and just clean up the mess anyway with them not there.
You're creating your own stress in essence without having boundaries.
Exactly.
You shouldn't be stressed at work either. You should be able to work
She's
smoothly.
got one of those birds.
I do. Just shit it on me. But you really need to reevaluate why the circumstance is what it is. And so if boundaries are upheld and still disrespected, yeah, you're going to have to thin out the herd or let the herd thin themselves out, because ultimately, okay, it's still not going to change the boundary. It's still there. But in the other position too, like if you're the boss and you had to set like you were just saying, set the boundaries with the employees, it's going to be a different conversation than you have if you're talking to your boss.
Right.
Because ultimately, again, stick to, is it true? Is it relevant? And is it kind?
Right.
Because if your boss expects you to overextend yourself and doesn't do that themselves already, then they are using you to do most of the brunt of the work.
Yes.
So pay attention to when it's appropriate to set healthy boundaries. And it is a professional circumstance and situation, so you owe no one any of your personal explanation or details, because people pleasers tend to over-explain. You owe nobody any explanation at all. It's a simple no is a full sentence, and a simple, I don't have to reveal any further information to you, is a truth, relevant, kind statement. Please understand that you have to pay attention to when it's appropriate to set boundaries. Are you spread thin at work and understaffed, but your boss shows tremendous leadership and is continuously and consistently going already above and beyond, is more spread thin than you are and doing her best to support you as well?
Yes.
Then
we're not trying to promote self-entitlement.
Then maybe you're going to help her out a little bit or him out a little bit or whoever out a little bit and go the extra mile, because teamwork makes the dream work when you're actually leading with compassion and supporting each other genuinely in a work environment. But when there's not that and there's an imbalance and it's a power thing, which happens quite often,
right?
Then please recognize that you cannot overextend yourself, because your life doesn't revolve around where your paycheck comes from. Right. Unless you live your purpose and earn a living through that purpose. And by all means, it's fabulous because you choose your clients and it's all good. But if you're in that transitional stage where you're still receiving funds by working externally from whatever your beautiful soul needs you to do. Eventually, this is what we're talking about.
Right.
Okay.
And none of this conversation has anything to do with entitlement. None of it. And if it's perceived that way, okay.
That's why, is it true? Is it relevant?
Yes.
Is it kind? Because you really are just sticking to the facts and the truth.
Yes.
The truth with compassion is irrefutable. Period. I don't know. Where should we go from here? Because boundaries are always around us in every way.
I think we're going to start winding it down. I think we're going to start winding it down because
we covered a few areas.
Yeah, we're at almost an hour, so we're going to start winding it down. Just be kind to yourself. That's what it's really about. If what you're allowing yourself to do for others, if what you're allowing yourself to do for yourself is in a healthy, balanced fashion and approach, then you'll recognize that you have healthy boundaries. Are you going to be tired from time to time? Yes. Are you going to overexert yourself from time to time? Naturally. But if you have a mindset of people pleasing because you're shooting on yourself, then you are shooting your life away. So finding that balance starts within.
Right.
Either one of us as coaches can help with that and do help with that, because that's one of the things that I think both of us work with clients on. Is help trying to establish the healthy boundaries that have been broken by us. That's the key to remember, is that the boundaries that are broken aren't broken by somebody else. It's broken by what we allow in.
Right. Yep.
So as we start to come to a close, ask yourself this question. I said it earlier. Is what I allow in my life healthy, meaningful, fulfilling, with the ability to show my genuine, authentic self to the world?
Yep.
And a challenge to take a Post-it note. Tape it to your mirror that says, every day, in every way, I'm getting better and better. Look at yourself in the eyes. I've been broadcasting this a lot lately because I heard about it and I decided to try it. Now, at first, because of the little boy inside that wants to, throw temper tantrums because I'm not getting my way. We won't go there. I would say this to myself in the mirror. No, we aren't. I'm getting better every day in every way. I'm getting better and better. No, you aren't. Every day in every way, I'm getting better and better. And this is the voice that I would hear inside.
Right.
A couple days ago. Every day in every way, I'm getting better and better. Yes, you are.
Boundary. Setting a boundary for yourself. Not allowing yourself to speak ill of yourself or dismiss yourself or invalidate yourself or gaslight yourself or whatever yourself. Exactly.
And it was an immediate response. Now, it does take some time for this to happen. It doesn't happen immediately. Yeah. When you decide that you want to set healthier boundaries, it's a process and it's a journey. And it can be a scary one, depending on the situation that you're in.
Right.
So give yourself permission. I think we're going to wrap up on that.
High five.
High five. It's so good to be able to do this live. I wish we could do it like this every week because it was fun. But join us next week.
Yes.
Let's see. Yes, next week. It's not until the end of April that we're going to have an interruption or a reschedule because I'll have an event on the 27th.
That's right.
So we'll figure something out. We'll either go sooner or later. or skip a week and enjoy the break.
Yes, indeed.
So, all right.
Enjoy your weekend.
Enjoy your weekend. You're going to have to watch me get up and walk her around.
And tomorrow's a holiday for a lot of people. So maybe start with the people furthest away from your closer inner circle to set boundaries with. Start with the people where you don't care as much what their feelings are, to allow yourself to practice speak up for yourself. Start outside your circle and work your way in. Okay, you got this.
And remember that those who do celebrate Easter, it's about a new beginning. It's about rising.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind. I'm not going to go far on that one, because we could get into another hour conversation about that. So remember, Easter. Keep going, everyone. Have a great week, and we'll see you soon.
Love you. Bye.